When Elvis Presley collapsed and died in his bathroom at Graceland in 1977, the world mourned the loss of a king. But behind the scenes, the king died almost broke. To understand why the most famous man on the planet wasn't the richest, you have to look at the man standing in his shadow, Colonel Tom Parker. In the history of the music business, managers typically take a 10% to 15% commission. Brian Epstein took 25% of the Beatles, and people thought that was robbery. Tom Parker took 50%. Think about the math on that. For every dollar Elvis earned singing his heart out, sweating on stage, and destroying his body, Parker took 50 cents just for picking up the phone. But the financial abuse went deeper than just commissions. Parker didn't treat Elvis like a client. He treated him like a property. He listed Elvis as an asset, not a partner. Over the course of their career, it is estimated that Parker siphoned off over $100 million from the Presley estate, money that should have gone to Elvis and his daughter, Lisa Marie. This wasn't management. It was the longest con in American history. And it started with a lie about who the Colonel actually was. Here is the secret that explains everything. Colonel Tom Parker did not exist. He claimed to be born in Huntington, West Virginia. He claimed to have a carnival background in the American South. It was all a fabrication. His real name was Andreas Cornelis van Kijck, and he was born in Breda, the Netherlands. In 1929, he fled his home country abruptly, leaving behind his family and his identity. Why did he run? Investigative journalists later uncovered a cold case from Breda around the same time. The brutal bludgeoning death of a woman named Anna van den Enden. While Parker was never officially charged, the timing of his disappearance was suspicious enough to haunt him forever. He arrived in America as an illegal immigrant. He joined the U.S. Army to hide, but was discharged for a psychosis that led to a mental breakdown. This is the crucial key to the entire Elvis tragedy. Because Parker was an undocumented immigrant with a checkered past, he had no passport. He could not leave the United States. If he applied for a passport, he would be fingerprinted and his dark past in the Netherlands would be exposed. He would be deported. So, to save his own skin, he had to make sure his golden goose never flew the coop. Before he sank his claws into Elvis, Parker was a true carnival barker, a carny. His nickname on the circuit was the Snowman, because he could snow anyone into believing anything. He learned his trade running unethical sideshows. His most famous trick involved the dancing chickens. Audiences would pay to see chickens dance to music. The secret? There was a hot plate hidden under the straw cage floor. Parker would turn up the heat, and the poor animals would hop around in pain. He didn't see living creatures. He saw acts to be exploited. He applied this exact same philosophy to Elvis Presley. When Elvis exploded onto the scene in the 1950s, Parker didn't care about the art. He cared about the merchandise. He famously signed a deal to produce "I Love Elvis's" buttons for the fans. But then, in a stroke of evil genius, he realized he was missing half the market. So he signed a deal to produce "I Hate Elvis's" buttons for the haters. He was profiting from the people who wanted to destroy his own client. To Parker, Elvis wasn't a human being. He was just another chicken on a hot plate. The 1960s were the most important decade in music history. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan were rewriting the rules of art. Elvis Presley, the man who started it all, wanted to be part of that. He wanted to make serious films like Rebel Without a Cause. Colonel Parker said no. Parker looked at the film industry and saw a factory. He trapped Elvis in a relentless schedule of terrible, low-budget musical comedies. We are talking about movies like Clambake, Harem Scarum, and Tickle Me. The scripts were written in weeks. The songs were throwaways. Elvis was forced to sing songs about shrimp and yoga. It broke his spirit. While the Beatles were releasing SGT, Pepper, Elvis was on a soundstage in Hollywood, hating what he had become. This is the most heartbreaking what-if in music history. By the 1970s, Elvis was desperate to reignite his passion. He begged Parker to book a world tour. The offers were astronomical. Promoters in Saudi Arabia offered $5 million for a single show. Promoters in Japan, Australia, and England were offering blank checks. Elvis packed his bags. He told his band to get their passports ready. He dreamed of playing at the Pyramids in Egypt or Wembley Stadium in London. But every time a deal was close, Parker killed it. He would come up with insane excuses. He would demand ridiculous amounts of money that no promoter could pay. He gaslit Elvis for years, telling him that foreign audiences hated him. It was a lie. The only reason Elvis never played outside North America was because Tom Parker couldn't go with him. Parker knew that if Elvis went abroad, he would realize he didn't need the Colonel. Or worse, Parker would be left behind in the U.S., losing his grip on his cash cow. So, he kept the bird in the cage, clipping his wings to ensure he never flew away. With the world tour off the table, Parker needed a new way to squeeze money out of Elvis. Enter the International Hotel in Las Vegas. In 1969, Parker signed Elvis to a residency. At first, it was a triumph, but soon, it became a prison. Parker locked Elvis into a multi-year contract that, by the mid-70s, was paying him peanuts compared to what he could earn in stadiums. Why would the greatest negotiator in the business sign such a bad deal? Because Colonel Tom Parker was a degenerate gambler. He was losing millions of dollars a year at the roulette and craps tables, often in the very same hotel where Elvis was performing. Investigative reports suggest that the casino owners had leverage over Parker. They allowed him to run up massive debts, knowing he would pay them back by delivering Elvis Presley for cheap. Elvis was essentially an indentured servant, singing Suspicious Minds 2 shows a night, 7 days a week, just to cover his manager's gambling losses. Parker didn't just manage the show, he lived in the casino, treating Elvis's talent as his personal line of credit. By 1976, the grind had destroyed Elvis. He was obese, suffering from glaucoma, hypertension, and a severely enlarged colon. He was addicted to a cocktail of prescription drugs just to wake up and go to sleep. Any ethical manager would have canceled the tour and checked him into a hospital. Parker did the opposite. He booked more dates. He needed the cash flow. There are terrifying accounts of Parker backstage, screaming at a barely conscious Elvis. The only thing that matters is that he's on stage tonight. When Elvis's bodyguards, Sonny and Red West, the men who actually tried to keep Elvis clean, tried to intervene, Parker manipulated Elvis into firing them. He isolated Elvis from anyone who cared about his health, surrounding him instead with Dr. Nick, a doctor who would prescribe whatever pills were necessary to keep the show on the road. Parker drove Elvis like a rental car he didn't care about damaging. In the final year of his life, Elvis was a ghost, sweating and stumbling through songs, while Parker counted the receipts in the back office. On August 16, 1977, the inevitable happened. Elvis died at 42. Most people would be paralyzed by grief. Tom Parker went to work. The very first thing he did, before the funeral even took place, was fly to New York to meet with merchandisers. He knew that a dead Elvis was worth more than a living one. He signed deals to license Elvis's image while the body was still warm. He even wore a Hawaiian shirt to the funeral, shaking hands and making deals. It wasn't until years later, thanks to a relentless investigation by a court-appointed guardian named Blanchard O'Toole, that the truth came out. The courts found that Parker's management was unethical and extortionate. The Presley estate sued Parker, finally forcing a settlement that stripped him of his power. But it was too late. The damage was done. The carnival barker had successfully pulled off the ultimate con. He found a young boy with a voice from God, tricked him into a 50% deal, worked him into an early grave, and walked away a rich man. It remains the darkest cautionary tale in the history of fame. If you found this investigation revealing, please hit the like button and subscribe for more music history.